You know that morning ritual, that afternoon pick-me-up? For billions of us, it's just a simple, essential part of the day, right? A cup of tea, a mug of coffee, maybe a square of chocolate. But have you ever really stopped to think about the incredible journey that's locked inside? It's a wild story of emperors, gods, and some seriously fascinating chemistry that powers our entire world. So let's get into it.
So I gotta ask you, what did you reach for today? Was it that sharp kick of an espresso? The smooth, steady lift you get from a black tea? Or maybe the rich comfort of a hot cocoa? Whatever your go-to is, you are part of a global tradition that stretches back thousands and thousands of years.
And believe it or not, it all starts right here, with these flowers, which are surprisingly beautiful. On the left, you're looking at the simple, elegant white flower of the tea plant. And on the right, that wild-looking thing is the flower of the cacao tree. I mean, they look like they're from two completely different worlds, and in a way they are. These are the botanical heroes of our story.
Today, we're going to get to know these three legends by their proper names. Camellia sinensis, which you know is tea. Theobroma cacao, the source of all things chocolate. And of course, Coffea arabica, the plant that gives us our beloved coffee. Each one has its own unique history, a distinct chemical signature, and a story of, well, global conquest.
So let's go back in time, and I mean way, way back, to a time of myths, medicine, and discovery to find out where our relationship with these amazing plants really began.
What's just incredible is the sheer scale of time we're talking about here. Tea, it first shows up in the medical records of Chinese Emperor Shenyang nearly 5,000 years ago. Meanwhile, over in Mesoamerica, around 1500 BC, the Olmecs were already processing cacao. And coffee story starts in the ancient wild forests on the mountains of Ethiopia. So yeah, these aren't some new fads, these are ancient rituals.
And you can tell how much people revered these plants just by looking at the name. When the botanist Carl Linnaeus named the cacao tree, he chose Theobroma cacao, which literally translates to food of the gods. And that perfectly captures how the Mayans and Aztecs saw it. For them, cacao beans were more valuable than gold. They were actually used as currency. Can you imagine buying your groceries with a handful of chocolate beans?
Okay, so how did this food of the gods get to the rest of us? Well, explorers like Christopher Columbus were the first Europeans to encounter it, but it was really the Spanish conquistador Hernán Cortés who introduced it to the royal courts of Europe back in the 1500s. And from that moment on, the world's taste for chocolate was changed forever. Now, tea's journey was a little bit different. For millennia, China had a total monopoly on its cultivation. It was a secret they guarded fiercely. It actually wasn't until the 19th century that tea cultivation spread across the globe, transforming it from a treasured secret in Asia into the worldwide commodity it is today.
But what is it exactly inside these plants that gives us that focus, that energy, that kick we all crave? Well, it all comes down to chemistry. All three of these plants contain stimulating compounds called alkaloids. For tea and coffee, the big one, the star player, is caffeine. But cacao's main stimulant is a milder cousin called theobromine. And look at the other stuff here. L-theanine in tea, which actually has a calming effect, and these powerful antioxidants called polyphenols in cacao. So they're not just one-trick ponies.
So here's the key question. Why does the caffeine in coffee feel so different from the caffeine in tea? Well, what the source material explains is that in tea, the caffeine is in what they call a bound form. And what that means is your body absorbs it more slowly, getting you this gentle, sustained lift instead of that immediate, sharp jolt you get from coffee. It's really the difference between a rocket launch and a steady climb.
So how do we get from a leaf or a bean on a tree to the drink in your cup? It's a fascinating process that's part agriculture, part chemistry, and part alchemy, a real transformation. Let's just take black tea as an example. This isn't just a matter of picking leaves and drying them out. Oh no, it is a carefully controlled four-step process. First, the leaves are withered. Then they're rolled up to break down their internal structures. The third step, they call it fermentation, but it's really oxidation. And this is where the magic happens. This exposure to oxygen is what turns the leaves from green to that deep coppery red and develops all those complex flavors. And finally, they're dried with heat to stop the whole process.
And I mean, it is a stunning transformation. On the left, you see the fresh, green leaves right on the bush. On the right, the final product. It's almost unrecognizable. All of that color, that aroma, that flavor, it's all unlocked through that careful process.
Cacao has its own remarkable journey. It starts with these big, colorful pods that,
in this really cool botanical quirk called cauliflory, grow directly from the trunk and the thick branches of the tree.
Inside each of those pods are the beans, and they're covered in this white, fleshy pulp. After they're harvested, the beans get fermented and dried, kind of like tea. But then comes the really crucial step, roasting. That is what develops that deep, rich flavor we all associate with chocolate. You can just see the huge change from the pale beans on the left to the dark, roasted ones on the right.
And of course, there's coffee. The roasting process is everything for coffee beans. It's during roasting that a chemical process called the Maillard reaction takes place. This is the same exact reaction that browns your toast or sears a steak, and it's responsible for creating hundreds of the aromatic compounds that give coffee its incredible complexity and that signature smell.
We've journeyed through history, science, and production. But that brings us to the big question for today's world, the one everybody wants an answer to. Are these things actually good for us? Let's see what the research says.
Well, there is a lot of good news here. All three are absolutely packed with antioxidants, which help protect our cells from damage. Research suggests that tea and coffee might even have neuroprotective effects, potentially lowering the risk of diseases like Alzheimer's. Cacao and tea have been shown to be good for your heart, and that compound in tea, theophylline, is even used as a medication for asthma. Pretty cool, right?
But of course, it's all about balance. Too much caffeine, especially from coffee, can lead to anxiety, bad sleep, and a racing heart. And it's so important to remember that the health benefits of cacao are often totally canceled out by the huge amounts of sugar in most commercial chocolate. And in the end, how your body reacts to all this can really just come down to your own individual genetics.
You know when you look at an image like this, these incredible rolling green hills of a tea plantation, you see so much more than just a crop. You're seeing history. You're seeing a global economic force. You are seeing a plant that has shaped cultures, sparked revolutions, and powered civilizations, one single cup at a time.
So, the next time you take that first sip, or that first bite, maybe you'll think about the Aztec emperors who used it as money, or the Chinese monks who guarded its secrets for centuries, or even just the complex chemical dance that's happening inside your body. Because there is an entire world of history, science, and power right there in your cup. What are you going to think about?